Hello, everyone. Welcome to Good Film Hunting, a podcast about an average couple who are on the hunt for some good movies. In today's world, we are consuming more media than ever, perhaps more passively than ever. But we believe that by documenting and discussing the media we intake, how and what we intake will change for the better. It is important that we don't just become another consumer, but a participant, seeking to engage with the media we consume, so that we can see how our view of the world affects how we perceive it, and how it affects how we perceive the world. In this podcast, we are not only on the hunt for some good movies, but on the hunt for a good discussion. So, lean in, participate, and enjoy. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Good Film Hunting. James here as always, and right beside me is my lovely wife. Introduce yourself to audience. Give them your name.
No.
No?
No.
I guess you won't know
Anonymous.
who she is.
I prefer to
Her
remain
name
anonymous.
is Anonymous. This is James and Anonymous. Well, you'll find out later, I'm sure. If you stick around, maybe that'll be the true mystery for this episode if you're listening for the first time. Probably not, though, because the intro kind of gives it away.
That's true.
Oh, well. So yeah, we are going to be reviewing Dawn of the Planet of the Apes this evening. But before we delve into our overall spoiler-filled thoughts on this film, Anonymous wife, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Got
be
a bit
better.
of a
Could be
sore
worse.
throat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, that's not fun. It's
But
never fun to have a sore throat.
I'm still here.
It's true.
And I'm alive.
It's true.
And I got Starbucks earlier,
Oh, look at you.
which was good. So can't complain too much.
Matcha frappuccino, right? Mm-hmm. It's pretty good.
It was pretty good.
With extra whipped cream, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our son loves whipped cream.
He does.
And he was very sad when you would not let him have any more whipped cream.
It's
He's like,
true.
I'm not having this. This is too much for my little baby brain.
I know. It's hard to feed your son whipped cream as you're walking through Target. So there's only so much whipped cream I would let him get on himself in public.
There you go. Alrighty. So if you are listening in for the first time, I'll just give a brief breakdown of our episode structure. This will be a pretty spoiler-filled conversation from beginning to end. We'll start lighter on the spoilers towards the beginning, but definitely get heavier as we go along. I've got a list of facts for Savannah about this movie that she may or may not know. Then we will move into our overall general thoughts on the movie, our history with the movie, if we have any. We'll mention our favorite moment of the movie. Then we'll go into our deep dive into the rating system, where we have 4 categories that we'll rate on a scale of 1 to 5. That will be the very spoiler-heavy conversation. And then we'll just give our overall rating, our recommendation, whether we think you should invest your time in this or not. And then at some other point, we will move on to our next movie. Not tonight, though, as always, because it's much too late for that. All right, Savannah, you... Oh, I'm sorry. Anonymous, are you...
No, you let it out now.
They don't know. I can always bleep it out.
That's true. You
Be
could.
like, beep. Could do that.
You could do that.
Could do that. So, Anonymous wife. Mm-hmm. Definitely not Savannah. Are you ready for some facts about Dawn of the Planet of the Apes?
I am.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully you didn't read them all just now.
I just read the first one.
Why did you do that? Don't do that. All right. So, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. First off, let's not even dive into the facts yet, because what an interesting title for this particular movie. This is the second in the trilogy, right?
I know. I found their names to be weird.
Yeah, it's like, let's go with Rise of the Planet of the Apes. First movie. Cool. What do we do the second one? Well, they've already risen, so I guess they're waking up?
I know. I feel like the first one should have been Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and then the second one, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
That's how it is.
I mean, sorry. First one should have been Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Second one should have
That's
been
what
Rise.
it should have been, but they just didn't
Does anyone
have...
say anything about that?
Oh, yeah, it's a joke all the time.
Oh, okay.
People are like, why they chose to name it this, we don't know.
Oh, well.
It is what it is. They didn't know if they'd be doing a sequel when they made the first one, so...
Still a good movie.
Regardless, it's true. All right, into the facts. This movie was released July 11th, 2014, so just about 10 years ago.
Yeah, right around the same, roughly 10 years, or roughly around when we moved to the East Coast.
Mm-hmm. That's when 2014 was, the year of movies, right? Because we've got the Lego movie, you've got Interstellar, you've got Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
And while you were watching Interstellar in 2014,
I was definitely not watching Interstellar.
You were? Okay.
No, that
I
was
I was watching the Lego movie.
I went to the theater to see the Lego movie too,
Okay.
so that was a great experience. Anyway, this was distributed by 20th Century Fox. The movie has a runtime of 130 minutes. Want to guess its budget?
27 million.
Definitely more than that. Definitely.
40 million.
Way more than that.
60 million.
More.
Wow, 90 million.
Definitely more.
120 million.
Definitely closer. A little more.
130 million.
It was 170 million.
Wow, that's a big budget.
It's true. Not as much as The Amazing Spider-Man, which was over 200 million.
Wow, and not as fancy.
It's true.
That's crazy.
I know. It had a box office of 710.6 million, which is pretty good. That only made it the 8th highest grossing film of 2014. What was it? I guess it was The Amazing Spider-Man 2 that came out in 2014, right? Because we went back and looked at the list of the highest grossing movies.
Was it the highest grossing of 2014?
No, I think it was the 10th.
Where did the Lego movie land in that?
Not in that.
I feel like over time it's probably accumulated more.
Not a whole lot. I think it was something in the 400 millions. However, this does make this particular movie the highest grossing in the franchise, including all the older movies.
Interesting.
This was directed by Matt Reeves, who also did War for the Planet of the Apes, and he also did The Batman.
The Batman.
The Batman. It was written by Mark Baumbach, who also wrote War for the Planet of the Apes. I was curious to know if Mark Baumbach was related to Noah Baumbach, who was one of the writers for Barbie. I couldn't find that there was any connection. I guess they're both screenwriters who have the same last name. So
interesting.
Yeah. Music was done by Michael Giacchino. He did The Incredibles, Mission Impossible 3, and Up.
Interesting.
Yep. This film obviously stars Andy Serkis as Caesar. He's best known for his role as Gollum. It stars Jason Clarke as Malcolm. We've seen Jason Clarke in Oppenheimer. He was Roger Robb. You probably would not remember that character. He was in the guy leading the interrogation against the very intense, mean guy, which I didn't see at the time. I'm like, oh yeah, that's him.
Oh, weird. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah. Also has Gary Oldman, the one and only, as Rufus. Sorry. Why did I spell that wrong? Rufus?
No, that's how it's spelled. It's
is it Rufus? It's just weird. Huh. Okay. He essentially just does an edgier version of Commissioner Gordon from The Dark Knight.
Is he even edgier, though? He seems less edgy.
Really? I feel like he's a little edgier.
Similar edginess.
He also did have an appearance in Oppenheimer as President Truman. As Carrie Russell as Ellie. She was in Mission Impossible 3. And Toby Cabell as Koba. He was in A Monster Calls as the father character. I forget the boy's... Connor? I guess Connor is the name of the boy in the movie, so he was his dad.
Oh.
There you go. I didn't recognize anything else he was in. Oh. He's a British actor.
Interesting.
All right, so on to some production facts. The sequel for this movie was announced... The sequel to Rise of the Planet of the Apes was announced in 2012. Rupert Wyatt, who directed Rise, was set to do the sequel initially, but he dropped out due to saying he didn't think he'd have enough time to be able to create a good story with the deadline he was given. So then Matt Reeves took over and, well, he did just fine.
I feel like tonally the second and the third are very different than the first.
Oh, for sure.
And I wonder how much that has to do with the fact that they're different directors.
Oh, I'm sure it has to do with a lot.
Yeah, because the first one was definitely It gave Jurassic Park vibes
Yeah, that makes
more
sense.
than like anything else, and then the other two just seem much more mature and like
Yeah, that kind of makes
edgy.
sense. Filming began in April 2013 around the town of Campbell River in British Columbia.
Oh, British Columbia. Okay, that makes
Yep.
sense.
The location of Vancouver Island was chosen for its similarity to the locations depicted in the film, the forests and the variety of landscapes. So it was supposed to be in Muir Woods, like you
Okay.
suspected.
But yeah, because I was like, it's raining way too much here. Granted, it is very wet in Muir Woods in that area, but not nearly that wet.
It's
Okay, that
true.
makes so much sense.
This was the first outdoor motion capture film. So previously, anything Lord of the Rings hadn't been done outside.
But there hadn't been.
Like Gollum scenes weren't. Well, I guess he had moments outside. That's not true. I guess this maybe being the first entire movie because Avatar was all indoors.
Oh, okay. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was like literally just in a warehouse with a green screen. It sounds and looks really depressing.
Oh.
Like, that explains everything.
Yeah.
Another fun fact about the production is they tried filming with actors on actual horses, but because the actors were so good at, being monkeys, or apes, sorry, that they were way too skittish around the actors, and anytime Andy Serkis went to speak at Caesar, his horse would flip out.
Yeah,
So
horses are so dumb and like that. They're very irrational.
So they had to end up sitting on ladders instead, which is not as cool.
It's true. No wonder they looked so off. I feel like they looked a little awkward on the horses.
I mean, they are apes. They've got tiny legs.
That's true.
Some other just fun facts about this one. James Franco, who did Will in the first film, supposedly didn't know he had a cameo in this movie, in that scene with the camcorder. He apparently, during an interview, was like, wait, I was in that movie? I didn't know I was in that movie. I don't even know if they got my permission for that. But it's like, oh, too late now, I guess.
Oh, do you have to do that? Do you have to get an actor's permission to use a scene?
I don't know. He might have just been being a goof. I don't know. But according to a review, or not, yeah, of this movie I was listening to, because I've listened to a couple, apparently Andy Serkis is one of the highest grossing actors. Like, I think all in all, his films total have grossed almost like $15 billion that he's acted in. Just his motion capture films, which includes The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbits, The Planet of the Apes trilogy, 3 trilogies, so I don't know what you call that, as well as, I guess he did a King Kong adaptation with Peter Jackson after Lord of the Rings. Just those alone have grossed $5.5 billion.
Wow, that's crazy.
So he definitely has something going for him.
I know, that's interesting.
Right, so those are all the miscellaneous facts I had about this movie. So moving on to our general thoughts on this movie. Anonymous wife, definitely not named Savannah. What are your general thoughts about this movie?
My general thoughts, they definitely make me feel bad vibes when I watch them. Mm-hmm. And like, I just think back to when we first watched them, which was on our honeymoon. Mm-hmm. Which didn't like make it bad vibes, but it was definitely like, oh, this is kind of dark and weird. But they're definitely some of the like first movies of this kind that I've seen. Mm-hmm. Definitely really cool and well made and well done. Mm-hmm. Very epic in a lot of ways. But yeah, definitely like make you feel uncomfortable.
For sure.
At least me. I don't know if
Yeah,
everyone feels that way, but
they do make one feel uncomfortable.
yeah. But I like them. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed them. I'm glad that we're rewatching them.
Well, at least the last two.
The last two.
I've seen Rise of the Planet of the Apes 4 times.
And have I seen it twice?
I think you've just seen it twice, yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about the first one when we were discussing watching these movies, and I was like, I can kind of remember every beat of the movie, and when that happens, I'm not really super into watching it again. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So going into this one again, how much did you find that you remembered?
Oh, pretty much. pretty much all of it as I was watching it, but I didn't really think about it that much when we first started talking.
Okay.
Like, and I'm thinking about the third, and I'm like, I actually don't really remember. I mean, I remember some of the bigger beats of it, but like, I don't remember all the details. The fourth is probably the most, or the third is the most hazy.
Okay.
For me, but the second one I'm enjoying.
Okay. Very nice. So this is my third time seeing this movie, and I was just thinking about it after we watched it. This is the type of film that gives me hope for Dune Part 2 as far as enjoyment goes. Because I watched Dune Part 2 and I was like, that was good, but like I just felt like I couldn't quite embrace it. That's very much how I felt about this movie the first time I watched it. I really enjoyed the first one. I really enjoyed the third one. And this one I was just like, I enjoyed it, but like it was kind of like whatever. Second time I watched it though, with you for the first time, I enjoyed it a lot more. I'm like, wow, this is actually really good. I don't know what happened the first time. And then watching it this third time, like, wow, this is really good. This is just getting better every time. So I really like this movie. I think it's quite good. I think it has a lot going for it. I think it's very intense and dramatic. It's got a lot of conflicting feelings about it because there's just so much happening with good and bad characters on both Ape and the people side. It's a very well crafted movie from beginning to end. And I'm always surprised by how many people have, at least within the sphere of people I've known growing up, have not heard or watched these movies. Which is interesting, especially like in the film community that I was a part of. I mentioned it. People are like, no, I've never seen it, never been interested. Like, what? Like, these are the movies like to go to for like well crafted things. And it's just kind of disappointment. They just, I guess, flew under the radar for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't remember the first time I heard about these. I think I heard about them probably watching like some YouTube video talking about special effects or something, and someone was talking about Planet of the Apes, and I went, oh, that sounds interesting. And then we went back, my family and I went back and watched the original one from the 1960s, which we'll have to do sometime. And we were just like, wow, that was interesting. And then naturally, these ones totally way different. We kind of skipped like the 5 sequels after the first one.
Oh, are there a lot of
there are a lot of
ones?
sequels. We really enjoyed them. My dad really enjoyed them, which it's always kind of fun when we find a movie that he really enjoys because he's not a movie person. So it's like, ooh, there you go. Found a classic for the family.
Yeah, your mom was telling me the other day how much she loves these movies too.
And does she? They're very good movies.
They are.
All right. Did you have a favorite moment of the movie? There are not a lot of comedic beats in this movie.
Yeah, I typically pick a comedic beat when I pick a favorite moment.
Is there one that just like stood out to you as being cool or touching or just like, oh, that was interesting?
I think a part that was touching and made me kind of feel a little teary-eyed was when Commissioner Gordon's iPad powered up and he was looking at pictures of his kids. And he was like crying and I was like, oh, that's so sad. And that made me feel sad.
I know. Imagine going that long without seeing pictures of your family.
I know.
It'd be very sad.
It would be.
Favorite moment for me? It's very hard to pinpoint one because I feel like this movie is riddled with lots of really cool moments and lots of very cool visual moments. I do have to think that I'm kind of a sucker for the action sequence, the battle sequence, as horrific as it's supposed to be.
It's so stressful. I can't
is.
imagine an army of apes coming at us with machine guns.
That's pretty terrifying. It would probably be one of the most terrifying things ever.
Yeah.
I just think that's a very well-crafted scene. And like you said, it's very stressful and very intense because you are legitimately terrified for the humans. Like, oh man, they've got it coming.
I know, the whole time I'm watching that movie, I'm like, huh.
But at the same time, like, I do feel I feel really bad for the apes too that are getting, hewn down because it's exactly what Caesar didn't want. So I think
Yeah.
it's just a very good like second act disaster. So I think that's probably my favorite moment of the movie, even though it is not necessarily a fun moment. So yeah. All right, let's go into our rating system. We got 4 categories that we'll rate on a scale of 1 to 5. That includes entertainment, production quality, writing, as well as the content. This will be a much heavier spoiler-filled conversation. So if you haven't seen this movie and you're, interested, go ahead and stop it. If not, keep listening. All right, so Anonymous Savannah. Definitely not Savannah. What would you give this film on a scale of 1 to 5 for entertainment?
I'd give it a 5. I think I'd give all the movies a 5 for
Okay.
entertainment. Every movie in the world.
Wow,
No,
that's
just
pretty
kidding.
generous.
All of
of
the
you.
Planet of the Apes movies. Maybe I think so, because they're very gripping and they keep they keep your attention, whether that be in a good way or a bad way, mostly a bad way. They keep me feeling like, oh my word, and just like almost speechless with like, this is terrible. And I think they're just very well done. The acting is really good. Like, I like a movie that when I watch it, I don't think about the acting at all. I think that means that it's a good movie. It's a well acted movie when I don't think about the acting.
Yeah.
In these movies, I don't think about the acting at all.
Well, that's good.
Other than like, oh, that's cool. I feel like every time I look at Caesar, I try to picture Andy Serkis in my mind because we know motion capture and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I can't. I don't really see it.
Hold on, I want to look up some pictures on the plane. Hold on. It's pretty fun to see pictures of them behind the scenes. I don't know if I'll be able to find a lot right away.
I kind of see it, I guess.
Yeah, you can see Andy Serkis in there a bit. You can see Rocket.
Yeah, I can see that.
It is fun, like if you go to like behind the scenes for these movies and like watch them walking around in their gray suits. It looks comical, but they don't care because Andy Serkis knows acting is imagining, so it's a gray suit, but like.
Why do they have all the spots on their faces?
That is so they can track
Facial
the
expression.
facial expression, the muscle movement, because this is actually a camera that watches them.
Okay.
So they've got this camera here, and I think they've got a couple other ones on them as well to get
Okay.
different angles of their faces, because obviously they have to go in and put like a CG character on top of it, but they still are getting that actual performance. And obviously it's replaced with an ape, but you can definitely see Andy Serkis in that ape. So it's always cool to see that. I've got these arm extensions to help them walk.
Fun.
Yeah.
That must require a lot of muscle.
I know, a lot. You have to be very physically fit for this.
That's crazy. I'm sure it's Gollum too, but maybe a little less so because Gollum's a little puny.
With Gollum, it's so neat to see the progression of the motion capture suit, because with Gollum, it literally was just like a skin tight suit, and there weren't dots or anything.
Yeah.
It's just that, and they just put Gollum over it, and then they went, well, how can we get more nuance in it? And then and Gollum, even of himself, was very good.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's getting into production quality.
Yeah, I would. In conclusion, I would give this movie a 5
Okay.
for entertainment value.
Yeah. I definitely would give it a 5. I think it definitely has you hooked from beginning to end. It has a very solemn but gripping opening, or kind of like prologue, that just gets you hooked right away. And then, it jumps right into the apes and the way that they're living life now. And it's really interesting to see. And then they obviously bring in the human element, and then immediately they've got you gripped because there's so many threads being pulled in all directions, and you feel the tension throughout the entire movie, and you're just hoping that it doesn't turn into something disastrous, but you know it's going to turn into something disastrous.
You know that there's going to be some sort of betrayal and drama.
Yeah. So you're very gripped, and even though like this is my third time seeing it, I know exactly where it's going. It's just I definitely can appreciate the nuances of everything more, and just the complexity of the character motivations. Like Gary Oldman's character definitely becomes more sympathetic every single time I've seen this. Like, he's not a bad guy. He makes some crazy decisions, but like he genuinely cares about his people, like Caesar.
I feel like in the first movie and the second movie, there aren't really many bad humans.
The first movie, there definitely are a couple. Draco Malfoy.
Oh well, yeah, okay. The people being
the Genesis guy.
The people being mean to the apes, but like, as far I feel like most of the humans are pretty sympathetic. Mm-hmm. And then the third movie happens, and then there's that crazy guy.
The crazy
psychotic guy.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's very gripping. Everything about it, just there's so much to watch on screen, even if you are familiar with this. Like the fact that you are watching CG apes, it's like, wow, I feel like I'm watching actual apes, and you can watch all the various apes in the backgrounds doing very ape things. Like this, it's just fun. Yeah. It's just fun to watch that, to see their mannerisms. All right. So for production quality, a scale 1 to 5, what would you give this?
I think another 5.
Okay.
It's just really well done. Like I really like the I really like the location. Mm-hmm. I feel like I don't know, I can't remember off the top of my head which movies I've said feel small. Barbie movie, for example. Okay, Barbie movie.
Okay.
Very small.
It feels small?
It feels very small. This feels very big. Like, I believe wholeheartedly that they're in the deserted remains of San Francisco. And, or at least the outskirts of San Francisco. Okay. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, this feels like a very big world. Obviously, they're kind of secluded in one spot, because that's kind of what you do when you don't really have electricity. And by they, I mean the people. But yeah, it feels just very big and rich.
Yeah.
The forests are very big. It's just a very, like, dynamic environment. And I think the visuals are really good. I think that's the most striking part of these movies is definitely the visuals.
Yeah.
And I think the various locations that they go to feel believable. Like the armory, and then the place where the people are staying, and then the ape house or the ape village. Which looks like something I would have built in my childhood.
Oh, does it?
As a fort, except yeah, it's a little
maybe a little less, bones here and there.
Yeah, a little less edgy. But yeah, I would say I'd give it a 5. Again, okay. Yeah.
Sounds good to me. I'm happy with that. I'll agree with you. I'll give this a 5. I think when you compare it even to the third movie, War, there are aspects of that CG and production quality that are even better.
In War?
Yeah. And it's actually kind of insane how much better they are in War. But at the same time, they're still very good in this one. I think it looks good, and once again, this is a movie you can tell they poured their hearts and souls into. Kind of like with Dune Part 2. Even though maybe we didn't enjoy that as much as we felt like we quote unquote should, we were still able to appreciate that there obviously was very much a lot of effort that was put into it. And given that this only had 170 million, which only has 170 million, the fact that everything looked as phenomenal as it did was insane. Because unfortunately, most superhero movies have a budget of upward 200 million these days.
For what?
I know. And it's very unfortunate. But this one, you could tell they carefully planned all the shots, and they were very passionate about the story. And this is an example of computer-generated imagery
being used well.
Being used very well.
Yeah.
Like, because in the original movie, it was people in ape costumes, and they were walking in, kind of apish, but not really. They just kind of like, it's kind of weird and doesn't age super well. And I know there was a 2001 reboot that Tim Burton did that nobody likes. and they went for the same thing there, and it was just apparently it was really weird and
Tim Burton should know what not to touch, and I think that's
it's
what
true. And nobody liked it there because it just once again it was too human. Like there are people underneath those. Whereas this one, or this trilogy, they finally had that technology. After Lord of the Rings and Avatar, to be like, okay, we can pull off apes, no big deal.
So not every ape is a motion capture ape.
Yeah, in this movie, every ape is a motion capture ape.
So they had that many people aping?
I'm pretty sure there were probably some like background shots where they didn't do that, but for the most part, yeah, it was just lots of people and those costumes.
That's crazy.
I know.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like the least convincing part of the apes movements was when they were talking to each other with like sign language. But like
because that's very not ape.
Yeah, it's very not ape. But like other than that, I thought it was really good.
I thought, as far as production goes, this movie has a lot of visually striking moments with Koba. Or just visually striking moments, especially with him. Like I mentioned in my notes here, there's this scene at the beginning when the apes are hunting, and there's this ape that swings into view, but like it starts faded out, and then it comes into view. Something about that to me just like solidifies, like I feel like these characters are actually here in this world. I don't know what it is about that particular shot, but then you've got, the scenes with Koba where he's he comes up to Carver in the van, and it's like a terrifying shot.
I know, definitely lots of like borderline horror moments in this movie.
There's the moment where he, shoots down the two guys in the armory.
Yeah, I think Koba deserves a award for his acting abilities in the armory moments because he was pretty convincing, but you can feel like the bitterness like seeping out of him like towards the people and like how much he hates them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like he's really good at pretending to be what he thinks that they think he is, and then he kills them, which is very dramatic.
I know. There's the scene where he jumps through the flames on a horse with a machine gun. Like that is, people talk about all the time, like, how the concept of a monkey on a horse with a gun.
Terrifying.
It sounds stupid. But somehow, this movie pulls it off to where it is literally the most terrifying thing ever. There's the whole tank scene where he jumps on that, and it's like that's 1 minute, one take of him just going into it, and it's once again very terrifying shot. And there's just a lot of moments like that are very good.
I know, because you could almost see the apes getting smarter every second.
Yeah.
And like it's almost like kind of how AI gets quote smarter the more you use it. Like the apes just become more and more intelligent the more technology they're presented with.
Yeah. I do have a note that I feel like Matt Reeves is very good with his openings in the 3 movies I've seen so far, whether it's this one, War, or The Batman. The Batman like probably has one of my favorite Batman movie openings out of the few Batman movies I've seen. But this one, just like, once again, the ending of the first movie, or I guess the post-credit scenes, was, we get the lines of the virus spreading, and we feel, oh no, that's so bad. Whereas this one, it does that again, but it makes it much more solemn, and it's very sad. And there's the visual representation of the globe and all the city lights across the world going out as the population is disappearing. Very, very haunting couple minutes. And obviously after COVID, you're like, ah!
I know.
Very different. Relate to that differently now. A little thing I thought was interesting about the production. There's that scene where Malcolm comes out when the apes come up to show their strength to the people, and Caesar wants to let them know, hey, we don't want to fight, but we all have to if you provoke us. All the people in the back are all wearing gray, but Malcolm's like the only guy in white, and it's clearly just done so you can see him amidst everyone. Like, oh, clever. I like that. I thought the music in this was really good. I actually really liked it. Michael Giacchino is a hit or a miss for me. His music feels somewhat flat most of the time. I think he does do a good job with melodies for the most part, most of his films. And some of his scores are good enough they won an Oscar, like, an Up. And The Incredibles is really good too. But I feel like it's almost like something about it isn't as quite as quote unquote deep as like Hans Zimmer. Like I don't feel it's as rich orchestrally. But I felt like he did a good job. There's a lot of themes that came back consistently. Koba has his theme that comes back and escalates throughout the movie. There were a couple 2001 references in the score, which you wouldn't know. But the opening for this one, when they're hunting the elk, there's that like long drawn out creepy choir where they're kind of like, I don't know if you remember, but like the actual sound of the elk running goes silent and it's just the choir.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember that.
That was very much a reference to 2001. Same exact, more or less the same exact track when the apes at the beginning of 2001 A Space Odyssey find the monolith and quote unquote evolve. So it was like, oh, that's kind of clever. I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all I had noted there. There's probably more I could think of, but I'll end it there. On a scale of 1 to 5 for writing, what would you give this one?
I'm thinking 5 again. But I will say I have a couple complaints with the writing. And by a couple complaints, I mean mostly one, kind of. I feel like and maybe this isn't like a super big complaint, but the townspeople, I felt like were weirdly portrayed, like townspeople, the people of the place, were weirdly portrayed in the Siege of the Apes. Because they kind of just, I don't know, I didn't really feel the fear that I wanted to feel from them. Because with the apes, like, they just kind of seemed like they were, like, always looking for a chance to, like, sneak away. I'm like, you are literally being chased by an army of apes who have no souls or ability to connect with you on a real emotional level. And they have no concept of justice. And they have no concept of self-control. And they're coming at you with literal machine guns with apparently unlimited ammo.
I know. The unlimited ammo? Man.
I didn't see a single ape reloading his gun. Considering they were extremely generous with the shooting.
I know.
So I just felt like I didn't feel fear at all. Like I felt it because, in my opinion, like I was looking at it through my lens, thinking of how terrifying it was. But I wasn't like, I didn't feel the people were like freaking out as much as they should have. So that would be my only complaint.
Okay.
About writing.
Gotcha.
I think. Yeah. Maybe if I like thought about it and dug through things, I could find a couple more things. But for the most part, I think it's good. I think I'd give it a 5.
Okay. I think I'll give this a 5. I have a few more complaints than you do, though. I think it gets a 5 because nothing's perfect. And once again, this film does a very good job at making the conflict so real because you are on everybody's side to an extent. I know you, Savannah, anonymous wife, tend to lean more towards the human side. Whereas I don't know if I lean towards the apes so much as Caesar, because Koba does initiate the attack. But to be fair, he's worried about the people coming to kill him. And Gary Oldman's character very much is, we're going to go kill them.
Yeah.
So his fears are valid.
Yeah.
So it's very much like, okay, no one's wrong.
No, I definitely have a lot of sympathy for the apes, too. I just think that they're apes, and so I don't feel as much of a connection with them. And also, they kind of were the ones who started rampaging in the first place. But they had good reasons, too. And then once they became intelligent. I think Caesar, like, in the first movie, he freed the apes and kind of started the whole thing.
It's true, but
Due to understandable, because he was, like, we could think of him as kind of like an immature, overzealous teenager in the first one.
Well, yeah, but also
He was seeing them being mistreated.
Yeah.
But he was maybe not as mature and wise in the first one as he was in this one.
Mm-hmm.
And you could still see his, not to hijack your thoughts on
you're
the
good.
thing. No, but you could still see his trust, that he has innate trust for humanity. Mm-hmm. In the second one, that's starting to blossom under Malcolm's influence. Mm-hmm. Which might be his downfall when it comes to the humans in the second one. Because he does trust them, which they were worthy of trust. The one, other than like that one guy that was bad, whatever his name was, Carver.
Yeah. Excuse me.
But again, understandable. We all process these events differently. I don't know how I would feel towards the apes if I was around.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they're scary because they're apes, and the movie plays that up very well. It's like it doesn't hide the fact they're not scary, but at the same time, you know, they're a society. And they're just another species trying to exist, and people kind of have firepower that they don't originally towards the beginning of the film. So yeah, it's just a very like, I feel like this film does very well. What's like the closest thing you can compare it to? I guess like a New People. Well, no, not even that. Because I was going to say the closest thing you can compare it to in a story we've seen before is like a new people coming to a new land, and it just being like a weird dynamic, like, you know, maybe pilgrims coming to America and the Native Americans, and this being like this push-pull relationship. Do we let them stay? Do we not let them stay? Are they dangerous? And like everyone having valid points. In that particular instance, I feel like, you know, the pilgrims were kind of, I mean, they were in the quote-unquote the wrong. In a sense, it was a little more justifiable because they came to the people who were already there, and it's like they knew they were there.
Yeah.
As opposed to this one where it's like, no, you know, the apes, they were there because the people died, and it was kind of the people's fault they died because they were greedy.
I'm just kind of surprised they existed as closely to each other as they did without seeing each other.
Yeah. But yeah, they just like both show up in each other's world one day and like, oh, well, we've both been here, so like, this is just awkward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in conclusion to my thoughts, I don't dislike the apes. I find more to sympathize with humans.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't think the movie's trying to argue otherwise. It's just,
true.
Like I said, it's very complex in that sense. I think the character of Caesar is definitely one of the better characters, probably in all film history.
Definitely the most sympathetic, too.
Yeah. I think his progression from the first movie to this movie to the last movie is very interesting because he's a very flawed character. And he admits that. And yet, at the same time, we're still rooting for him the whole time because he comes to understand his mistakes and wants to correct them, and he cares about his people very much, which is a very noble thing.
His apes.
Sorry, he cares about his apes very much. But, you know, in this movie, even then, he's not perfect. He has lots of moments of, like, very irrational lashing out, even, and, you know, there's that whole scene where he confesses to his son he thought apes were better than humans in a sense, which is why he underestimated Koba. When clearly the signs are there, you should have done something about this
It's
madman.
true.
So he's a very good character. Overall, this story is somewhat familiar in a sense because there's a lot of aspects about it that are very familiar, but I feel like kind of like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where it's a similar story before, people really like it because it does have a very fresh lens of like, oh, we've never seen it, you know, a conflict between apes and humans before. That's interesting. Or Into the Spider-Verse, you know, animated Spider-Man characters coming from different realms, I guess. Different universes.
I don't like multiverse
I
stories.
know. They can definitely get convoluted pretty quickly.
It's like fake science that I think Christopher Nolan is tending to expose or use too much.
Maybe.
But anyway.
But yeah, I think this is like an example of a story being, you know, there's only so many stories under the sun, but like it's still gripping regardless. It's still fascinating to see the same story played out again and again, but just kind of like, well, what if we threw in, this element? It's a little different than usual, in condition to just well-made production, or sorry, well-done production. This definitely has the best villain in review so far. I think I was looking over the list, like who else has been a decent villain? I guess Tai Lung from Kung Fu Panda, or the Peacock Lord Shen from Kung Fu Panda 2, but like that's it.
Really?
Yeah.
Are those the only villains we've really experienced?
Really, there's a couple like the Addams family, or Patch Adams himself. Hey, there's a coincidence there. Two Adams.
That's true. Well, there was a villain in Spider-Man.
Yeah,
They're kind of silly.
they're pretty lame, unfortunately.
That's true.
I definitely put the Kung Fu Panda villains above that.
I put the Peacock villain over the other one, I think.
Yeah. So they were good villains, but Koba is kind of on another level. He's definitely the most sympathetic. Like, you see where he's coming from, but what makes him a villain is he goes way too far, and eventually it goes into a point where he doesn't care about apes or people anymore. He just kind of wants to win. Mm-hmm. But he has a lot of moments that are very sympathetic, like the whole human work moment where, so you just like let the humans do the work, and Koba kind of like scoffs at him and starts pointing at all the scars on him. It's like, oh, yeah, I could see why you'd be salty at humanity.
Was Koba in the original?
He was, yeah.
In the original laboratory.
Yep. He was. But yeah, he very scary, very intelligent, in how he manages, to, I guess, gather up the apes under him to go attack the humans.
I'm just surprised they all believe. See, the thing about apes, like I said when we were watching it, have like no concept of justice or like investigation.
It's
and
true.
So
they're a young
Caesar,
society.
Caesar fell into the bushes. He must be dead. Let's follow Koba now.
Well, they were already suspicious
They
of
didn't
the
even
people.
look in the bushes.
It's true, but they were suspicious, right?
Okay, maybe.
But yeah, no, it's fair. They weren't as intelligent as they could be.
If they just
still
went down there, they would have been able to see that he was still.
It's like, oh, we're good. No, for sure.
He seemed, when they found, this is kind of a random side note, but when they found Caesar's body, he seemed a lot farther away than I would have expected.
Yeah, it's like, wow, how did that happen? Did he get up and move? Did he walk? And it was like, oh, I can't go anymore.
Yeah. Or maybe he just rolled down the hill.
Maybe.
Poor guy.
Poor guy. Did you think Koba's death was satisfying?
Mm-hmm. I think the death of a villain is always satisfying.
Always satisfying. Always.
Die.
Die.
Plus, I didn't like him. He was dumb. He was mean. He was mean.
He was a meanie.
He was a meanie.
He was a meanie. He shot Maurice.
No,
that is where we draw the line. If you shoot Maurice, you are automatically... you're gone. You're done. Caesar will not tolerate Maurice.
Well, he also yeeted Rocket's son off of the
balcony. That was a terrifying scene.
I know,
Speaking
he was
of
so
moments.
mean. And also, we didn't really get to see Rocket's response to that. Does he even know right now that his son is dead?
Yeah, he mentions it in the third one. But yeah, speaking of terrifying moments, like, that was very ruthless.
I know, he's like, okay, let's throw you and kill you.
Yeah.
Smash your body on the floor.
The whole ape not kill ape thing, that was I felt that was a very earned moment. Because they emphasized that almost like one too many times, because the apes are trying to set their own structure, their social structure. We don't kill each other. Caesar doesn't believe in killing each other because apes are better than human. Turns out Koba tries to kill Caesar. But then Koba's like, pulls that card on him at the end, like, haha, ape not kill ape, right? Caesar's like, yeah, I don't know about that. I might have to rethink some things.
I know. Justice must be served.
It's true.
That's his first acknowledgement of the judicial system.
Judicial system. But no, it was a very satisfying moment. Very, very tense moment at the end. I thought the whole human aspect this time around that I thought interesting was the people blaming the apes for the illness.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting twist they threw in there, because clearly they weren't. That was the people being greedy, and it just kind of getting out of control. And the apes happened to thrive from that. Mm-hmm. But then people felt the need to latch on to the apes and be like, it's their fault, they did it.
Yeah, so the thing that... So, the guy who worked with the apes got sick. Because he was exposed to... Mm-hmm. Was it the medicine that they were giving them?
Yeah, it was a virus they designed.
So, was what Caesar stole and then sprayed all over his friends, was that the virus or was that the medication for the Alzheimer's stuff?
Well, it's one and the same.
Okay.
Yeah, what was it? Will in the first one developed the virus to cure Alzheimer's. Eventually, it wore off because the body knew how to fight back against the virus, so he wanted to create something more powerful. But then, somewhere along, he kind of weirdly has a change of heart, in my opinion. But the guy who sees how intelligent Koba gets, is like, ooh, we gotta get this on the market now. Mm-hmm. And then that's where... Well, what was the one guy, I guess, not wearing the mask when they were doing the procedure, gets sick, and then he sneezes on the neighbor who's the pilot?
I know.
Yeah, the poor guy.
I know, that was so gross. No, I think his mask, like, pops off on accident.
Yeah, something like that. Last good thing, I've got a couple less good things to say. I felt like the moment of tragedy, like I mentioned before, the big second act, the way that's set up is done very well, in my opinion. I think, Caesar getting shot. The apes, maybe being a little quick to like, go. We gotta go get the humans. But this is just after they got the power back and the lights are on. They're listening to music, which is very much like, oh yeah, I guess you wouldn't have a way to listen to music. So that must be a nice thing after a decade. But, they've got that intense scene where the apes are rushing towards the human village, and then it like cuts to silent and the people dancing. Mm-hmm. It's very much like oh no, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's a little eerie.
It's very eerie. All right, less good things. I hate the camcorder scene. Can I be honest? I've never liked it.
Where he's watching it.
Yeah, it's the most contrived thing ever where I feel like they're
especially
trying
since that after
to make you cry.
A decade, it starts working again.
Yeah, because there's that. I was like, that's a stretch, but like it's like they're telling you to cry and like they're putting a knife into you saying, cry, cry. And I'm like, I'm not crying. This is, whatever. You're already at the house, which is a stretch. I don't need you to find a video recording that just happens to have a video of Caesar and Will, singing, whatever.
Question about the house really fast. Do you feel like 10 years is enough time for the whole city and the house to become as dilapidated as it was?
I don't know. I mean, have you seen some of those weeds? They go.
I know. It just seemed really, really dilapidated. Like, it seemed like maybe 50 years, not 10.
I don't know.
But I don't know.
I mean, you gotta break some
artistic
rules.
license.
It's true. But in my opinion, the camcorder should not have been one of those rules you broke. I felt there were definitely some coincidental moments in this, such as, like I said, the camera scene. The son and Malcolm meeting up. Like, oh, thank goodness it was Blue Eyes who found Malcolm when he went back to get the medicine instead of, another ape. Because, shoo-wee, that worked out well. The whole them finding Caesar, like I mentioned, was just kind of like that. Well, I guess that's convenient. Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm glad they found him. I remember the first time watching this, thinking he was actually dead, and being like, "Wow, that was a twist." Okay.
Okay.
Where's this going now?
Well, it was weird because his eyes were partially open, and then they started moving because it was like.
Well, I meant, like, I thought he was dead in the sense, like, he was shot and he was gone, and I forgot about him. Like, I thought, like, maybe Blue Eyes somehow was going to be the next character, like, lead character. Yeah, so there's just a couple moments like that. And then, yeah, I think there's not a lot. Just minor things here and there, somewhat coincidental. I thought the whole progression of Koba and Caesar both talking more and more as the film went on interesting, as like escalation grew and their intelligence grew. I thought that was well done. like the very first time Caesar's yells "go" at the humans, it's very haunting and chilling because already you've got these apes and now they're screaming words at us. Okay, that's scary. But then it just kind of becomes more of a natural thing. And I think they do that pretty well.
Yeah.
Anywho, those are all my notes. There's a lot. I actually wrote them down this time.
I know, good job.
Thank you. All right, so for content, what would you give this on a scale of 1 to 5? So it's a PG-13 movie. And the story itself is darker. So in this case, content would be the more negative, offensive, scary, sexual things kind of weighed against what the story is doing, whether we actually feel like it belongs or if it's just unnecessary or too extreme. Or maybe interpret that differently than I do.
I can't remember. Smaller numbers are less bad?
Smaller numbers are more bad. So like a 1 would be like, hopefully we would never watch anything that's a 1.
Okay.
5 would be like, this is the most pure, perfect, magical movie ever, and everyone should watch it.
I'd probably give it a 3. I feel like I give a lot of things a 3 for like in between, but it was violent, but not like disturbingly so, to me at least, and maybe I'm just becoming desensitized, but I didn't find it disturbingly violent. Language, but nothing crazy.
There was one F-bomb, right? And
there might have been S-words and stuff.
Lots of S-words.
But nothing like offensive.
No.
And again, maybe I'm just becoming desensitized. But nothing that I found offensive. And as far as like, there's no sexual content. There's nothing else really. I think I would say, I'd give it a 3, and I would say the worst part about it is the vibes. The feeling that you'll get in your soul when you watch it. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say PG-13 is a good rating, like 13 and up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would, as far as content goes, and the way I interpret this, I can definitely see an argument for 3. The worst thing about it, and as far as like things that don't feel super necessary, is the language. It's definitely a little heavier than some movies I think we've done. Maybe not as heavy as Hunt for the Wilder People, which we watched recently, and it just felt like there's a lot of frivolous language they used in there. Whereas this one, everything felt like, no, there's weight behind what they're saying most of the time, and it's kind of understandable. And then there are this scary vibes. Koba has a lot of really scary moments in this movie. But as far as, sexual content goes, this is like the cleanest one you could probably find as far as movies we've done as in the PG-13 setting. There's like nothing there. Definitely some violence. But I would give it a 4 just because I think going into this, you kind of know what the story is, and I think every decision they make serves the story well. And it's nothing like in there that detracts from the viewing experience. Whereas a 3, I think it's somewhat detracts from it a little bit, but not too much. I'd be comfortable giving it a 4. I think it's not a young kid movie. I think little kids would have nightmares watching this.
Yeah.
But it's not quite horror.
Hey, I would say the third one was probably the scariest.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Koba is pretty scary in this one. Like
he
definitely.
But I don't know. The third one has more people scariness in it, I feel like.
Maybe. That one's a very, very, very depressing movie from beginning to end.
I know.
Yeah, I think I'd be comfortable with that. It's a pretty clean movie. It's just very mature, I think, which is fine. You're allowed to have mature stories. They don't have to be immature.
It's true.
All right, so this one was pretty high as overall categories. It was a 5, 5, 5, 3 for you, 5, 5, 5, 4 for me. So where does that put you at the end of the day? If you're going to sit down, rate this, and recommend it, what is your overall conclusion?
I give it a 5.
Okay. Wow. Is that first 5 for you in this? Or would Klaus
No,
get a 5?
I feel like I've done 5s before.
Maybe it was Klaus.
Wasn't the last movie we reviewed a 5? Hunt for the Wilder People? Or was it 4? I might have given that a 4.
A 4, yeah, 4.5. Not that we released that one.
That's true. No, yeah, I think it's a 5. Like, I would give a couple caveats when I would tell someone, or recommend it to someone. But yeah, I'd give it a 5.
Okay. I think I'd give it a 5 too, which is very high praise for a movie. There's not a lot I would dish out a 5 to, but if I were to say my top 20 favorite movies, this one is definitely in it. I think my appreciation for it, like I said, has just grown more every time. Like I said, that gives me a lot of hope for Dune Part 2. Like, come on.
You'll have to experience that hope for yourself, because I'm not watching that movie again.
How sad. And maybe I'll watch Dune Part 2 again and be like, it's the same. Who knows? But yeah, I would recommend this because, like, it's thought-provoking. It's well done. It's not a happy film. It's not, like...
A hopeful film.
It's not hopeful. But it's not bad, and it's not preaching any bad messages either, or harmful messages. It's just... It's a very interesting exploration of human nature, very much like The Prestige, right? Which is another one of our favorites. Very, very interesting exploration of human nature, and unfortunately at its worst a lot of times. And there are probably more positive aspects in this one than there is in The Prestige, just with specific characters. But yeah, I think it's very well done, and I'm sad that more people don't know about this one.
I know.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was our take on Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Poor anonymous wife here is so tired and ready for bed, so we're going to tuck her in so she can go to sleep, and hopefully her throat will feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very sad that your throat's not feeling good. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'll survive.
But yeah, thank you everyone for listening. We hope you've been inspired to have some more conversation around the movies you're watching. Maybe this one if you've seen it before. Let us know what you thought about this movie in the comments. Let us know what you think about our ratings. And until next time, good film hunting.